Record. We are officially live. We're recording now. Great to see you. How you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. 3 seasons in one day here in the UK. I was just thinking about that before as the sun blazed through the window. And this morning it was snowing. Then it was torrential rain, and now it's sunshine. So it's obviously the holiday destination of the future. You just have to pack your shorts, your woolly hat, and everything. So a bit of a mixed bag. But hey, happy April Fools. That's what we're faced with these days at the 1st of April.
No, I love it. It's the same here. I'm in Kansas at the minute, in America, and we've had all 4 seasons in one day. So you can imagine it's unbelievable. We're meant to be getting snow today. So no, good. Well, listen, obviously super excited to be chatting to you. And I'm excited for where the conversation is going to go, because there's a lot that we're going to try and unpack around your coaching beliefs, your values, your journey, and more. And just while we're on that note, would you be able to give us a bit of a run through some of the bus stops, if you like, or your journey for those that don't know who Jamie Williams is? You know, who is Jamie, and what are some of the experiences that have shaped how you coach?
Yeah, well, for anybody who wants to know, I'm sure there's not many, but yeah, bus stops is a good way of looking at it, because it is very much a journey. And do you know what's really interesting is a couple of weeks ago, Tom Hartley, really cool guy, good coach, working in the space for UK coaching. He posed a question and I responded to it. I don't often respond to people on social media. I'm a bit of one of them guys who just kind of sits in the background. And the question he asked was, what book title would you use to describe your coaching journey? And yeah, I responded. I responded with a couple of options because I wasn't quite sure. And the 2 that sprung to mind were Winging It, because I've very much been winging it, and I think that's what I'll continue to do. Or the other book option was Traveling in Good Company, because I've certainly traveled this journey so far and met some incredible people who've shaped my values and my behaviours and my beliefs, and that's helped me both as a parent, as a friend, as a husband, but also on the kind of sports field and in kind of the coaching world. So where did it all start? Early days, I guess I had very, very fortunate beginnings on a couple of levels. I had hugely supportive parents, and when opportunities presented themselves to do a bit of coaching and to try and help out and to put the cones out and supervise and be alongside mentors, I was whisked to wherever the venues were, and they would take me all over the place so I could kind of develop some early craft. I also grew up in the same town as a guy called Barney Jones, who's a wonderful, wonderful person, phenomenal coach and mentor. And he had moved from down south up north. I live in the frozen north of England, and he set up camp here, and he created a business. And I was just really fortunate to get involved. So from being a player at his camps to being a volunteer to helping out a little bit part-time to being able to do it alongside my school education, as I was sort of 15, 16, 17, 18, was just like the most phenomenal of starts to my journey. Yeah, I mean, what did Barney do? Barney gave you the space to make a load of mistakes. He provided a safety net that would catch you when things went hideously wrong, and believe me, it did, because I was just starting out, and I was pretty awful, really. I mean, if I look back now, I can only picture myself being really shit, because we always are, and what we think is the best then is, as time progresses, we realize there is perhaps some better or more slick ways to do things. But he gave me the space to make those mistakes, and he had a high level of trust in me. I then went on and did a little bit of my own sort of coaching business, because Barney retired, much to my dissatisfaction, because I think at that time I was planning on working for Barney for the rest of my life. So when he took early retirement, that was a bit of a kick in the proverbials, should we say. And yeah, I decided I would set up a bit of a little mini coaching thing locally when I was 18, which was a lot of fun. I learned about the importance of returning custom and trying to deliver incredible experiences, and that put me in contact with some really cool people like Pete Sturgis, and Pete sort of put his arm around my shoulder and said, look, why don't you get involved in the skills program? We're doing some really cool stuff with the FA. You seem like the kind of person that would be a good fit for it. Why don't you apply for a job and see if that would work out? And I did. And man, I just like my sort of experimental youth, if you like, my creative playground just continued, because the skills program was very much like what Barney had created. It was a space where you were free to experiment and to explore and to try things. And I just did it in the most incredible of companies. So Pete and Nick Levitt were the guys who sort of ran the operation, if you like. They were like the kind of Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi at the top. But then within our sort of Jedi camp, we had a really cool team of people that worked within the Northeast, and we just challenged each other to kind of get creative and to come up with new ideas. And that's where I learned about games-based approach, and where I learned about the importance of learning through play. And I just had the most incredible of times. And yeah, that's kind of where it all began. I just had like unconditional support and loads of space to make loads of mistakes and pick myself up and go again. So that growth kind of led me into, at the time, the professional game. So I got a phone call from Newcastle United, and they said, hey, what do you think about kind of getting involved in what we're doing? Come along and be involved on a full-time basis within the foundation phase. So I did, and I got involved in that and spent a number of years there, had some wonderful experiences, traveled across Europe, and yeah, just engaged in so much high quality football with some really budding, high potential young players, which challenged me as a coach. And I stepped, I guess, into an arena where everybody was better than me, so I had to kind of learn fast and find my own sort of place in the club, and that was a lot of fun. And then had the opportunity to go to Sunderland, so I joined Sunderland as their foundation phase lead. So by this time, I had sort of like 5 years worth of professional club academy kind of roles, and yeah, sort of spent some time there. And there's a nice story actually. During my time at Newcastle, one of the coaches had reportedly said to another coach, which is like, I like this. They said, you know, the thing about Jamie is that, pardon my language, he says he really doesn't give a shit, but he really does. And when I found out what that meant I was very much my own self. I was an authentic person, and I'd be willing to kind of push the boundaries a little bit with regards to practice and leaving kids to be in charge of sessions. And I would sometimes leave a message on a whiteboard, and I would go and like hide in the car park, and the players would come in and have to kind of self-organize and get things going at the start of sessions. And that was a little bit against the norm. I would also bring like the big ghetto blaster in, and we'd have like high volume, like trance hits going on at times when the music's on. And it just was a little bit different, but the players like loved it, the parents, in fact, the whole club, to be fair, they gave me real freedom to do it. But it was a nice little saying of this idea of like, he doesn't give a shit, but he really does. Because at the heart of it was, I was always trying to find what was right for the players at that age and stage of their journey. But what I also learned during that journey was that I was kind of making a bit of a difference. And I was so excited about the difference that I was seeing in the players and the feedback that was coming, which was mostly through like just smiles and enjoyment and progression. I would kind of push forward, and I'd want to do everything, you know, overnight and want to move things forward quickly. But the problem there was I would sometimes forget to kind of take people on the journey with me. So yeah. I think an important lesson I learned was that actually, and it's a famous quote, isn't it? That one of, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And actually just slowing down a little bit would have been probably helpful on everybody's part, because whilst we were making that difference, the practice and this whole games-based approach and this learning through play was very different to what had been before, and there became a little bit of a divide. And so I decided to get off the hamster's wheel that is football coaching, and I went and studied. So I kind of stepped into this academic world. I'd gone through the Premier League's ECAS program, and I'd met some amazing people. Dave Piggott, like what a wizard he is, and a guy called Cliff Olson, who like totally challenged me to think differently. A guy at UCLan, and I just realized that there was so much more to know. So I was like on this journey of thinking I knew it all, and then quickly got punched in the face and realized, oh my God, like there's so many people out there with so much more information and knowledge and wisdom to share. So I wanted a piece of it. So I went down to Leeds Beckett, where I think you were engaged in a course, and like met people like Bob Muir, which is like, I mean, like he is literally the closest thing to like coaching Jesus that there'll ever be. And it was just an incredible experience. That coincided with becoming a parent for the first time. So I'm very, very fortunate father of two beautiful children. And during my early kind of university days, I found myself trying to work out how to be a parent as well. And I was like super curious on the course, like to find out more information. I became super curious as a parent to work out like how the hell you're supposed to do this thing. And it just made me more open-minded. It made me more chilled. It made me realize that actually, like, we haven't got a fucking clue. Like, honestly, like we're just sort of on this planet trying to kind of survive and figure it all out. There's a lovely story though, where it was like a realization moment where I was tapping away one day and I was doing all of my university work and trying to kind of meet deadlines and all this kind of stuff. And for a week or two, I'm working away in the living room, and my little son Elliot's wandering around and he's tugging at my leg, and dad, he's trying to push the computer to one side, and I had an important deadline to make. So whilst I was in the room and I thought I was spending time with Elliot, I really wasn't, and children are the best at giving you some feedback as to how you're really doing and how attentive you are. And we went away on a little holiday for 5 days, and I decided I would leave the computer, I'd leave my phone, and we would just go and escape to the Lake District. And we spent a bit of time in Scotland as well. And all of a sudden, Elliot had kept me at like this arm's distance, but then he welcomed me into his world, and all of a sudden I became like the best thing since sliced bread. So the child I couldn't get near to because I was constantly on this computer and he wasn't really interested in me, became super interested. And the lesson that I learned was, if you're in the room, be in the room. And it's this idea of like, be present, be entirely present in the moment. And that was the really important lesson that Elliot taught me, that's kind of served me well for future life. So whoever walks in the room, I'll always show an interest, and I'll be curious about what they have to offer and what I can learn and glean from them. I then got involved in sort of semi-professional football with quite an aspirational football club called South Shields Football Club. At the same time as doing some PE at a local first school, which was just like the best experience ever, because like they had like 30 kids in the school. I had free reign to come in and do, I think they gave me like 8 hours worth of PE in a week. And again, I just kind of was able to mess around and play around with how that curriculum would look. And then my role within South Shields kind of grew. So from being 2 part-time jobs, I took on a full-time position with South Shields, and that was as kind of player and coach developer. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed my time there. Spent a lot of time within that kind of youth and professional development phase, if you like, and worked with some wonderful people. And what we were able to achieve in 5 years was quite incredible, because we took what was pretty much a glorified pub team that had no junior section, it had no academies, didn't really have any infrastructure, to be in within 5 years a fully fledged professional outfit with a full-time first team. We had no full-time staff when I started. We had 39 when I left, and we had some really thriving academies and players that have gone on to have good careers and enjoy their time, whether it's here or overseas. And yeah, that was just like a cool place to be. But I had another realization during that time, because I was surrounded by very tactically, technically focused coaches, some of the best coaches I've ever worked with. And I realized, we were sat around the table one day and I said, you guys get so obsessed and excited about the tech tac stuff that's going on. And I said, I just don't get that excited about it. I'm more excited by the conversations that happen pitch side, or the conversations in the dressing rooms or around the club. And I realized that actually what it was is I was a people person in a football world. And that's still like a little bit of a dilemma that I kind of play around with at the moment, which is that football wasn't really it. It was not about the game. It was about the people. And actually football was just something that connected me with people. So maybe some people can kind of relate to that. Bit of a plotted history here, but like alongside all of that, I've done some tutoring, I've done some mentoring for the FA, I've supported some work for the Magic Academy. Big shout out to like Rusty and Fletch, because they are absolute legends, like two of the most impactful people on my own journey, and two great friends, people who I'm lucky enough to work with in my kind of day job now. And I've been doing a bit of stuff with Boyne Kids, so look out for them, because I think they're kind of on the rise. I think there's some cool stuff going to come out of Boyne Kids and the work that's supported by Sport England. And I'm now, I've embarked on a new adventure, which is in the past month, I've joined a company called Post Pro, which is a relatively kind of new organization. And we're kind of working, well, number one, we're working with some unbelievable people. So Rusty and Fletch are two of those guys. And our mission is to try and support players, coaches and clubs. And kind of at the heart of it is, we want to kind of discover how sport can be used as a vehicle for kind of lifelong success, both within the sports arena, but also beyond. And we're going to try and work with players to help them work out how to transition into future careers, to think about leadership skills, to think about soft skill development that can serve them today, but also tomorrow. And I mean, listen, that's like the journey, and they're the bus stops. I guess overall, what I've learned along the way, even though I'm still quite young, is like we never arrive. Like we're never going to quite arrive at the destination, because there is no destination. And there's just this lush quote that I stumbled across with my children in a book. Which is a book about a bear and a dragon. It's like this awesome little book, picture book. And the quote, or the quote on the page, goes somewhere like this. The big bear, it's a panda actually. The panda asks the tiny dragon, which is more important, the journey or the destination? To which the tiny dragon replies, the company. And I just think it's just a story of my life, that actually it's not about the journey or the destination. It's the brilliant company that I've shared along the way. And if I've got any wishes for the next like 30 years, it would be that I travel in as good a company as I've shared over the last 15 or so years. Because that'll certainly make me a very, very happy person. And I know I'll be a more successful person as a result of those relationships. And I've turned very philosophical. I've maybe become a little bit hippie and getting lost in the whole world and actually just embracing the moment. Like seriously, like I think, people have talked to me recently about like, maybe Buddhists have got it right, and this whole like kind of just getting lost in the moment and like meditating and all that kind of stuff. But I just don't want to worry about it all. Like there's too much bad stuff going on the planet, and there's too many people who just take themselves too bloody seriously. And I actually just want to kind of chill a little bit and like try and get into surfing and like snowboarding and just be at one with the world if I can. So if football or coaching's got me to that point, then cool. If it's just some sort of mad mystical headspace that I'm in, then that's also cool. But that's me. That's my kind of weird and wonderful journey.
Well, no, there's a lot there, isn't there? I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and I think what's really interesting is that the people that, well, one, your sort of view on the world and probably view on coaching, how that's been shaped by different people. you've mentioned some really interesting characters there, whether it be Rusty, Russell Earnshaw, whether it be Nick Levitt, whether it be Pete Sturgis, all these different sort of people that have shaped you in different ways. And I think the fact that you've had some really interesting experiences, whether with the FA and the skills team, I mean, you will have been among the first specialist youth skills coaches in the country, right, that launched that program. I think what's more fascinating is the work. Yeah, you've worked in academies and you've done that. You've had some great training with as a coach developer with the FA. You mentioned stuff with the Premier League and ECAS, the Elite Coach Apprenticeship Scheme, other stuff. I'm more fascinated by your journey and your work with South Shields, because what's really fascinating there is that you've effectively got this grassroots club that you've professionalized. You've created a culture, or been a part of a group of individuals that have shaped a culture. You've gone from, I mean, South Shields is a strong club in the Northeast, isn't it? They're a non-league club, but you've made it professional in standing, full-time staff. You'll have helped to increase revenues. I know you gravitated into different roles. You originally probably more towards the coach development. You then went into more business development, if I'm right, and strategic looking at it. I think that's really interesting, because those experiences aren't often heard of in the UK. And certainly that sort of transition, creating a DNA, a structure, and so on. And I think those experiences are applicable whether you're an academy director, head of coaching, director of coaching in the United States, working with grassroots players. There's a lot of lessons there that I wouldn't mind delving into. One being, I remember years ago when I first met you, you were sort of shaping how coaching looked within those academy teams that you talked about, that you created, and the junior side of it, right? You created all these junior teams within South Shields. So that would be similar to being like a head of coaching or a director of coaching or a technical director or whatever title around the world. But what really stood out to me, and obviously you'll be able to explain it better, was, if I'm right from memory, you used to talk about observation and the art of noticing. So you'd have these coaches who maybe perhaps are beginning on their journey. They weren't all professional, were they? They were like volunteers.
Definitely not professional. None
like
of us were professional. I can assure you of that.
Looked like mums and dads, weren't they? They were just, well, we're all mums and dads, I guess. But they'd have other professions as a living, right? And they would come.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So I think that's incredible, because you've got an individual there who could be a type A, could be type B personality, could be a CEO of his own company, could be a plumber, he could be an electrician, she could be a primary school teacher, it could be anything. But then you've had to create a program that not only helps them to coach their own kids or other people's kids, but also create an opportunity to mentor them, right? So I want to know how you did that, because obviously that'll have shaped the growth of that football club that you created. So talk me through, because if I remember, it used to be around noticing and observation. So if they didn't have the technical detail, or not that I agree that that's right anyway, but if they didn't know necessarily how to break down things, or how to coach, or what to coach, or how to develop stuff within practices, you help them become better at noticing, if I'm right, and watching players, studying player actions, watching principles. And that's sort of how you develop their mentoring. I mean, that was one of the first conversations I had with you back in probably 2016, I think. 2016,
yeah, 2017. Right. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, right? So let's rewind a little bit. And one of the things you reflected on in my journey was around good people. And first and foremost, like, one thing that worked at the football club with regards to our growth was that we got some good people on the bus, and we sat them in the right seats, and we sat them in the right direction, and we started to move, and we started to build a little bit of momentum. So some of those people were kind of highly skilled within the field. So being a football club, one of the first places that the club decided to go would be kind of coaching. And I was fortunate enough to be part of a team of 3 people that sort of embarked on that journey. So Lee Picton and Graham Fenton, who were the the team managers, if you like, for the senior team, but also became much more like the Alex Ferguson type of manager, the club manager, the people who were involved in all corners of the football club's progress. They're two incredible people, like two wonderful, wonderful human beings. I got on board with them. And we just started to add more good people. And because of where we were, we had to begin as volunteers. So whilst I was in a paid job and Lee and Graham were in paid jobs, we had other jobs as well. We were doing, 10 hours a week or whatever. But everybody else was a volunteer. And what we did is we created a bit of a vision for the club of trying to be, we actually set out to be the world's best club. And this was my saying. So let me explain it before people think I'm barking up the wrong tree here. By world's best club, the intention was never to be bigger or better than anybody else, and it was never to suggest that South Shields Football Club could ever be, and will never be, of course, the world's best football club in monetary terms, in success in a international stage. The idea, the picture that we created, and I was so passionate about, was this idea that every single football club on the planet, no matter how big, no matter how small, has the potential to be the world's best club in the eyes and minds of every individual who connects with it. So the vision that we had was the young child and their family who turn up on a Tuesday night,
right?
And they come bounding through the gates and they run into the football club and onto the pitch for training or for whatever event it might be. And when asked who's the best club in the world, they would turn and say South Shields Football Club, because it's something that attaches to them. It's something that means something, and it's their favorite club. So it's about being the world's best club to as many people as possible. And I think we achieved that with many people within the community, because if I use a story as simple as this, the football club in around about 2014 and 15 was getting kind of 50 to 70 people going to watch its men's first team. In 2016-17, the football club did an amazing thing and actually got to the final of the FA Vars as part of like a quadruple winning season. And 15,000 fans went in support of South Shields Football Club. So from 50 to 15,000 was incredible. And were all of those 15,000 fans, hard, committed, loyal South Shields Football Club followers? Probably not, but they got on the journey and they wanted to be part of an experience, and they were proud of their town. So South Shields is a big town, and what we wanted to do was we wanted to try and connect to the community. We wanted to create a space where everybody felt like they could be a contribution. Everybody could make a contribution to the football club, whether that's through support, whether it's through service and volunteering, whether it's getting the family involved through the junior teams and so on. And that kind of flowed into the way we set up the football program. And we kind of decided that we'd do this approach where it wasn't a bottom up, it wasn't a top down, it was both, because we had a men's first team and we wanted to build a junior section from the bottom up. So we built a bit of a philosophy which was centered around what we know about children and young people. And we thought, well, actually, what are the characteristics and traits of sort of 7, 8 and 9-year-olds, which is the early part of the journey. And we realized that actually...
But when you said we build, did you do that in connection with them? So you involved them in that co-design?
So we involved the volunteer coaches. So we involved the volunteer coaches, and then we ran it by the parents and the selection of parents and a selection of players, and what we'd asked them to do was to feed back on it to see if they felt like it was representative of them. And we built a program that was centered around play, and it was about me and my ball from the youngest age groups, which moved into me and my mates and then progressed into me and my team. And it was just this incremental journey. And what we needed is we needed some coaches, right? We needed some people that could get involved. And you're entirely right that one of the kickbacks that we had was, but I don't know anything about football. I don't know anything about football. Because actually what we looked for was we looked for good human beings. We looked for good people who had really strong values and who we felt would do right by the child. That was our primary aim. It didn't really matter if they knew anything about football or they had a coaching qualification or anything like that. It was very much about them as a personality and their ability to care for and to nurture young people. My job was I had to try and build some belief that they could do it and that they could also bring some value and add some value to the kind of football side of things, because ultimately that's what the kids were coming to try and learn. So what did we do? We took the focus away from it being about technical, tactical knowledge, and what we did was we shifted the we shifted the role of the coach from being one of being here to lead to being here to learn, and we talked about the coach being a co-learner and learning alongside the players and learning with the players. So it was actually entirely okay if you didn't know the answer to a problem of the game, because we're just going to figure this out together. We're going to work it out. And what it allowed us to do, and it's one of my core beliefs, which is that actually it's the players that need to problem solve, not the coaches.
Okay.
But the coach who's got all the knowledge and has all the tech tack potentially also has the capacity and the capability to solve problems that are happening for the players. We had this perfect storm, because we had some kind of coaches who were curious and eager to help the players, but didn't entirely know how. So we took them on a journey of co-creating environments and co-learning. And it was very much about just observe and like, what are you noticing, and kind of focus on what is in front of you. So what's actually happening, and then ask really good questions about it. Yeah. Just say, hey, well, why do we think that happened? And yeah, they had a lot of fun. And you know what? Did they turn into like wonderful coaches? Some did, actually. Some really got the coaching bug and have progressed through their coaching badges, and might be UEFA B coaches or whatever they are now, and they're still involved in the game. And some have gone on to make it a profession. The vast majority never had a wish or a want to do any more than just make sure that the kids had a training session that was a safe environment, that was inclusive, that was fun. Like, ultimately, we would assess ourselves and we would judge ourselves on the smiles on faces and the retention of players. Like, were the players coming back, and were they leaving with big smiles on faces? And they always used to laugh at me because, and this is a true story, I would actually turn up at training and we'd all muck it. Like, don't get us wrong, I would do quite a lot of coaching. Lee and Graham would do a lot of coaching. We had some other really top level coaches who were also working at academies who would come and volunteer and help us. So the kids were getting some good quality stuff. But I would turn up and I would just like stand pitch side and I would close my eyes. And this is a true story. I would often stand there and I'd close my eyes for 10 seconds. And I would just listen to the noise. And I knew whether the session was going well or the session was going not so well, not to do with what I was seeing. It was entirely to do with the vibrancy of the environment, the noise that was being generated. Because unlike schools, and I know you're interested in school environments where children are told to shut up and be quiet and sit on your seat and don't move, and only talk when you're spoken to. Yeah. Actually, the environment that we wanted to create was one that was electric, that was, you could almost feel the atmosphere, like, because the kids were so happy and they were excited and they were collaborating and they were working on problems, and they were, they wouldn't take themselves too seriously. They would laugh at like mistakes that would happen, not laugh as in we're laughing at you. It's almost laugh at myself. I fell over the ball type thing. And it was just a lush, like, wonderful environment. We did some things differently. Like we partnered up with a local gymnastics club and we did a bit of a kind of free running program to try and help them with their physical literacy. And that was just a playful environment where we chuck loads of obstacles and see how many different ways people could get over them. Or we'd play 2v2 tag in a giant gym with like a million obstacles in the way. And kids were free to explore and experiment. And then that led to an academy, which was slightly more focused, and serious is the wrong word, because I think actually those players had just as much fun. But their fun was in a slightly more focused, competitive way. And that was beyond 12. So we wouldn't we never specialized kids. But if you were going to ramp up the training, or you were going to give them a little bit more focused training. We believe that shouldn't happen. Well, I don't actually believe that should happen pre-puberty, but we came to a compromise and agreed that actually secondary school was a good time to do that. So from the age of 12, we introduced our academies, and those academies ran through till under 19. And again, it's a nice space and a nice environment, but best of all, it's created employment for people. So we've actually got a workforce at South Shields Football Club now, which is 4 or 5 strong, 5 or 6 full-time members of staff, and then a team of maybe 5 or 6 part-time staff that support that. Which for the size of club is wonderful, because we're able to give people employment and pay them well for their expertise.
No, I think I could talk to you about this all day, obviously conscious of time and your time. And I think it's incredible the journey you've gone on, but then equally those experiences that have led to perhaps those beliefs. I'd love to unpack that, today. And just closing a loop, really, I think it's so interesting how you've talked about smiles on faces, retention, coming back. Do the kids want to come back? Is the coach creating this environment that's fun, that's promoting learning? I know before, off camera, we were talking about school, and we were saying I was saying at school you're taught to sit down, be quiet, shut up, don't collaborate, listen when you're spoken to, don't interject if the teacher's talking. Don't share. Don't ask for help. If you're doing an exam or a test, you can't ask for help. You have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's seen as cheating. You can't look to see what the answer is. Even like the thing of like looking at the book, and the answers will always be at the back. And you're told, no, don't look at the back. You're not allowed to look at the back. So you always, but actually, do you know what? There's more than one way to solve a problem. There isn't. Whereas in school, we're often taught that there's a very clear right and wrong answer, and there's only one right answer.
Yeah.
So it's not promoting that exploratory thinking, collaboration, sharing, peer-to-peer learning. Everything that you've talked about there is incredible. I think the fact that you've took coaches on a journey where I'm not very good at coaching. I don't know how to coach. I don't know the game. And they're like, I haven't got this understanding. You've actually gone, don't worry, like you don't need to. And it brings me back to that conversation we had years and years ago, which was you saying to coaches like, we'll watch the player dribbling. And you were talking about there, what are we noticing? Don't worry, we'll figure it out together. And the kids are going on that journey with the coach. And then the coach is going, all right, if he takes the touch too far, or if he takes it here, and even asking the players, what do we notice here? I think it's incredible. And I think even it's great if you're a grassroots coach in the early part of your career to develop those observation skills. I think if you're a high-performing coach or a really strong coach, I know we was talking about this off camera, Ian Bateman saying to me that with the FA coach development team, A-licensed coaches struggle to see 2 or 3 player actions or principles, more. They might be able to describe them, but can they actually see them and notice them and be able to support and affect them? And I think that's interesting. So how do we develop our art of noticing, becoming more purposeful in our observation, and then going back to the piece before about, being comfortable with not say, we don't have to be the oracle of all knowledge, being vulnerable, going on a journey with the kids and discovering stuff ourselves. And that's okay. But I think because we live in this environment where it's often coach centered and we're telling them the answer, you're developing that dependency on the coach rather than the player. There's loads in there that you said that, perhaps we could do this again and unpack that in more detail. But I just thought it was really interesting, effectively the values that you're creating, going back to that piece around smiles and retention. Are they coming back? Is it fun? It's like it links very closely to Amanda Vizek, fun maps. Why do kids play the sport? What makes playing football fun? On that note, 2 quick questions for you, or quickish, would be, what are some of your values and how they emerged and how you sort of coach those values? Because you made quite a direct point, which was great for anyone listening, which was not so much the tech tack, but you're more focused on the other stuff. You'll get more excited about the relationships communication, interactions, the fist pumps, the high fives, everything else. So I'm just curious, what are your values? Because I know you've mentioned to me before was it love, joy, kindness? I don't know if they're in any particular order, if it has to be that, but how do they come about? How is that part of, I guess, even your everyday life, your coaching, and how do you train it? And then maybe even, there's probably a lot of questions there, but I'm assuming you'll be able to tell me even the beliefs that underpin those values, right? And why that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, slight disclaimer before, it's not, I might have painted this rosy picture. There was plenty mishaps and things that didn't go so well, but what we did is we didn't take ourselves too seriously, and
Right.
you know, when it wasn't perfect, we just saw it as a learning opportunity, and we'd kind of try and figure it out together.
No,
Yeah, it was a cool environment. But anyway, why did we come to that point? Number one, that's not the answer. As in, that's just our way of doing it, and that was a chosen way. That was an approach that I saw fitting, and that has come about because of the experiences that I've had and the people that I've shared time with prior to joining that football club. And it's also shaped by my values and my beliefs, because actually everybody is. So we're all just like walking behaviours and walking habits, and what you see on the surface, the iceberg is a good analogy to use, that what you see on the surface is only an expression of what you don't see below. So our values shape the way that we act and interact and behave. Our values and our beliefs shape the activities that we deem right and fitting for anyone at any moment in time. Or if you're a manager of an organization, those beliefs and those values will shape the expectations that you place on your staff or on others, and the same is true for parents. So my values are pretty strong, in the sense that I constantly challenge and check myself against my three values of joy, love, and kindness. So I want, fundamentally in life, I want everyone to have a good time. Like, it really upsets me when people have a bad time, or if there's a fallout, or if someone's looking glum. Like, I just want people to be smiling and enjoying each other's company. I wish the world was a little bit more loving. Although I do find that interesting, because I think when you come from a loving, if one of your values is love, you start to recognize there's plenty of love and care in the world, because you notice it. Whereas if it's not something that you value, then you don't notice it as much, right? But I'd love to spread a little bit more of it, if possible. So love and care, and then kindness. Just be kind. Like, God, I've got two kids, and Haley and I went to parents' evening the other week, and it's interesting because they obviously follow a format. And my children's school is a wonderful place. I'm actually a governor on the board of governors, and it's a beautiful place. But you can still see them stuck in like school mode of they're going to tell me about my 7-year-old child's academic progress, and I was really intentional at the start to just say, before we get into anything to do with like the educational stuff, can I just check in on, like, is Elliot being kind on a daily basis? Is he spreading joy and like uplifting people? Is he good to have around? Do you enjoy having him in the class? And like, does he kind of show a bit of love? And like, do you think he's having a good time? And anyway, we've got the response to all of that. And it wasn't a surprise to hear that, you know, he's super kind and he's really joyful and always seems happy, and he comes bouncing into the classroom and he tries to make other people happy, blah, blah, blah. But actually, that's all that matters, right? And I said to him, look, how can we support Elliot, whether it's through his English, his creative arts stuff, whether it's math, whatever. Let's work together and help him be a little bit better. But I'm not really interested in where he is. If there's any charts of like, is he top, is he bottom, is he here, is he there? He is where he is. And that's totally cool. Because number one, is he being kind? Is he being caring? And is he happy? And is he helping other people to live a happy life? So they'd be like front and center of my everyday. Like, in every interaction that I have, I try and spread and share a little bit of that, which is why, and they shape my beliefs as well. So my beliefs, and I would challenge coaches who are on the call to really think about their own values and beliefs, because whether you're deliberate about them or not, they exist, and they are shaping your everyday behaviors. 100% they're shaping your everyday behaviors.
Okay.
Other stuff that kind of shapes it would be like the realities of your world, as in, like, are you in good health? Do you get good sleep? What's the reality of, like, your working day? Do you, like, turn up at the session having fought your way through rush hour traffic, and you pull up pitch side and then you run out with your balls and bibs, and which is totally fine. There's no problem that's your life and that's how you prepare for a session. But just being aware of it's really helpful, because the first 5 or 10 minutes you might want to give back to the players just to get yourself in check, rather than, like, chasing your tail for an hour. Your circles of influence. So we've talked a lot about people today, but my big advice would be surround yourself with good people, and those people will lead you to more good people. But who are your kind of circles of influence? And what are your coaching beliefs? What are your beliefs on learning? Like, how, because ultimately that's it, right? We're here to try and coach and to support learning. So what are your beliefs on it? Because my belief would be that learning happens at the learner's end. It's them that need to do the learning, not us. So that's going to shape the way that I interact. That's going to definitely mean that I need to support them by creating an experience and then helping them reflect, and then giving them an opportunity to adapt the behavior and have another experience. Because that would be my model of learning, would be we all have an experience. We then go through some reflection, we modify and adapt our behavior. We then go back and have another experience with new behaviors. So I need to help them on that journey, and I need to help them kind of figure that out. Other beliefs that would be important to me, losing's important. So if I'm running a program, I think it's pretty important that all children experience the highs and the lows. They experience some wins, they experience some losses. They experience being the oldest in the group. They experience being the youngest in the group. They experience being the biggest and the smallest, the smartest. All these things, like a variety of experiences, is so, so important. But losing is an important part of life. And it's a really, really good life lesson that should be deliberately planned into our programs if we're interested in developing people. Other stuff would be like, this is the best one. Like, the only thing we know about the future is that we don't know. So why do I need to, like, tell, give about a future 10 years from now that doesn't exist? Like, stop making it about the next 10 years and start thinking about the next 10 minutes. Like, be in the moment with these kids. Yes, help them develop future skills, help them develop resilience, independence, courage, leadership, creativity, skills that are going to serve them well, self-organization. I mean, my nephew's just gone around the world for 30 days or around Europe for 30 days. Bloody hell, like, he's never been out of Hexham. Like, I hope he's got some self-organization skills and some independence, or else we might not see him again, like, seriously. But what are we doing, like, for the next 15 years, from the child being 7 to being 21? Like, what are we doing to help them be ready to flourish in the future? And only a small part of that is about football. The rest of it's about behaviors and the how skills of life that will serve them well within and outside of the game. Other stuff would be, fun. I've talked about that, and it's that idea that, like, people rarely succeed unless they're having fun in what they're doing. Right. So a guy called Terry Mitchell, I used to work with, wonderful coach, had a nice saying, which is, if you make it fun, the work gets done. And it's true. Like, start with fun, because engagement is everything in learning. Another one would be around, I want every experience to be a learning opportunity for the players and for the coaches. And it's amazing how often we in the sports world turn up with a focus on the players. And it all comes from a really, really good place. But how are we getting better? Because if we're not getting better, then we're not going to help the players get any better. So on a daily basis, if you're working with players, how can you create a coaching environment that's as equally beneficial to the coaches as it is for the players. So do you invite, I don't know, do you invite outside bodies to come in, coaches from different sports, people from different worlds? Do you get feedback from parents? Do you get an age group older coach to come and observe and offer some feedback? Do you go and observe and offer feedback to them? Do you really create a safe to fail environment for yourself? And we're all desperate, aren't we, to get like this perfect session, but the perfect session doesn't exist. There is no such thing. And a nice way of looking at it is, it's like, be like the rock star, right? So I always say, like, coach like a rock star. So Freddie Mercury, Wembley Stadium, out he comes in front of 80,000. What they're going to start with is they're going to start with some energizers, some stuff that they know gets the crowd excited, or in our case, the kids excited to be here. Then in the middle, they get really experimental. They might try some of the new stuff that they haven't quite mastered yet. They're not sure how it's going to land. That's the experimental phase, where it's kind of safe to fail because they've started well and everybody's loving it. The midsection, they're all going and getting a beer anyway, so like nobody's listening to you, but you experiment and you're exploring. As coaches, we can do that. Which elements of the game are we not so comfortable with, or have you got a new practice that you might want to try? And as long as you finish with a showstopper that they absolutely love, then you'll be all right, because they arrive happy, they leave happy, and they forget about everything else in the middle. Now, on the good days, the bit in the middle is really adding value as well. But on the not so good days, it's okay, because that game that you ended with sent them all home to mum and dad with a huge smile on the face, because it was the game that they want to play all week. And it's a nice way of looking at it. It's like, energize, get them up, get them happy, get them excited, experiment, explore, try and help, try and make some subtle shifts in their performance or their development, and then hit them with a big showstopper where they just go, yes. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't mean finish with a game, because often we do that, don't we? We kind of dangle the carrot of, if you behave, you can have a game as a reward. Yeah. Well, I don't subscribe to that. And my belief is, and I delivered a workshop with Northumberland FA the other day about this, which is that all of those young people, whether they're, well, it doesn't even matter if they're young or old, if it's the walking footballers who are over 65, they still come to play the game, right? That's what they signed up for. They come to play the game. They joined your club for that reason. So don't see it as a reward. See it as the reason why they're there. And your purpose is to provide an environment that lets them explore it. And you try and help them make sense of the game and the realities of the game that are in front of them. And I believe the best way to do that is through the game. So can we teach the game by playing the game? With occasional dropouts where actually we isolate a certain section of it, and we might put that under the radar for a little bit to then come back into the game to explore it. But it's amazing. I mean, 95% of stuff you can teach and you can shine the torch on through the game if you're smart enough about it, and you adapt the sort of the numbers that are playing, because a game is just like 2 goals, 1 ball, 2 teams. That might be 1v1, it might be 11v11, but the game is the same. It's in like, there's a goal at each end, there's 1 ball in the middle, and there's 2 of us that are playing to try and outscore each other. So I don't know if that answers your question, but to just reinforce the point, right? I'm probably more consistent now with my coaching behaviors and the decisions that I make as a result of being clearer on my values and my beliefs. Now, that doesn't mean that in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years time, those beliefs are going to be the same. In fact, they probably won't be, because I'll have collided with lots of other people who have convinced me and influenced me to think about things a little bit differently. So it's like that idea of kind of 2 islands, and as coaches or people, we're desperate to sit on one of the islands. I am this, I am a games-based coach, I am a drills-based coach, I am this, I am that. It's coach-led, it's player-led. You kind of need to be on the boat that's in the middle, that's kind of moving between the 2. And if it's fit for context and it's relevant, we'll spend some time on this island. But I'll never stay there too long that I become like comfortable, because I might need to get in the boat for the next person and go over here. So that's it. Like, I'm pretty clear on like what my beliefs are. They're pretty much kind of attached to my values. So they pretty much run through like everything that I do. And yeah, like past experiences shape how we come to see the world. So speak to me again in 30 years and it might be a whole new story. But
No, brilliant.
yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight into the madness that sits within Jamie Williams's head.
I love it, honestly, because you've explained even more. You've gone beyond into the rationales. Incredible discussion, because there's lots there for any coach to unpack over and over again, whether it be what your coaching beliefs, who are you surrounding with, how you design environments that make learning happen, what does learning look like for the child, how can you have the child at the center of your focus, or us, we're all children, aren't we? How can we have, what is it we're trying to achieve, what's the mission, how does the mission reinforce our values, how does the message marry up with our values, does our behavior marry up and align with what we're saying or not, as the case may be sometimes. There's loads there to unpack. And honestly, really, really appreciate your time, because I think wherever anyone listening is on that journey, there's a lot there for them to really think about and try and adapt to fit them, right? To fit them in their environment and their context with their players. So no, absolutely incredible.
No, it's great, and I really appreciate. Just sort of one final thing, because it's remembering that there's an audience that, if they're still listening, well done. You've done well to see it out. But and thank you if you have. But just some like takeaways, some things to try. I do believe that we're only going to succeed in this world, and we're going to be helpful to each other, and particularly children and young people, if we work together, right? But we work in a world which is tribal, and football's about competition, right?
Yeah.
But please, if you're working with young people, give this a go. Like, try it. When you next turn up to a match, don't see yourself as being in competition with the other coaches that are there. Try and spend some time collaborating with, communicating with, cooperating with other coaches to better understand and learn from each other as to how you can help your players. And it's this us versus them culture. And I would really openly challenge this idea of us versus them. It's okay for the participants to compete and to try and outscore one another and to be competitive, because sport is that. But if you are one of the developers, if you are there to try and help players grow and improve and build confidence, we're all in it together. We all share the same mission, and it's got nothing to do with the scoreboard, because you cannot record it on the scoreboard. But what we can do is we can, for instance, I can ask you if you would be so kind as to observe a team that I work with for the first half of a game, or for the entirety of a game. And I might ask you to give some appreciative feedback to my players as to what observations you've made, or you might want to feed that back into me so that I now see the group of players that I'm responsible for through a different lens. And I'm able to use that perspective to influence how I support them in the future. Because one thing we know is that we all see the world slightly differently.
Yeah.
Because our experiences have shaped how we come to see the world. We all look at things through a slightly different lens. So it's pretty helpful to ask what other people are seeing. Like, what have you noticed about the players today? Because you might give me one observation that I didn't make. And the other thing is, if you're lucky enough to co-coach, don't co-coach side by side, because again, from a viewpoint of view, you're probably looking at the same stuff.
Yeah,
so split yourselves up and stand at different sides of the practice, because you might see some different things. But then check in before you go and unload on the players.
Yeah.
Check in with one another. See, are we seeing the same? Are we seeing different? And then decide upon what's the best course of action as a result of what we've observed. But also, let's ask the players, what have they felt and what have they observed within the session? So yeah, less competition, more collaboration, and no more us versus them. Like, I'm just not having it. It's not helpful.
It's really interesting. I think it's definitely stuff that's going to poke a little bit of a thought in people around because we're not going to change culture overnight for sure, anywhere in the world. But for people listening, does it help bridge a little bit of a line of communication or a relationship that you can do, however you make that happen, where you're not just seeing the outcome and that result, but actually, as you said, you find ways to collaborate with someone else. I've tried it in the States where with some coaches, we've had a discussion. I've gone, what are you working on this week, even before the game? What are you working on this week? How might we be able to set up to cause you a problem? And we've collaborated that way. That might not be for everyone. Some people might be thinking, I'm not having that. And that's fine, isn't it? I know you talked about halftime talk. There's many ways, even just reviewing at the end of the game. I guess wherever that small first step is, but if there's ways that we can collaborate, and doesn't have to be all the time, every time, but definitely creating a different lens, I think that's incredible. And you're right. I'd often co-coach, but I would never be stood next to him because you're just influencing me, aren't you? And that's what happens, isn't it? You talk and you're telling me, and then obviously I'm looking at what you're looking at versus, as you say, being stood apart and then recognizing the moments when you do come together.
You fuel each other's biases, don't you? And I think the other, just as like that final point, because this is maybe relevant, right? Because I'm very aware that my view is different to many, as in many people will have a slightly different, more traditional view. And that's absolutely fine. Like, as in, my view is not right, their view is not wrong. And it's important to look at. I think it's important to look at conversations like this, presentations people might make, anything in the coach development space through an open lens. With an open mind, and to start from a point of there is no right and wrong with this. It's just people who are trying to figure it out. And all I've done in the last hour or so is maybe shared a little bit about my philosophy, which I'm totally happy is not like the answer. It's definitely not the answer, but it's the best I can do with what I've got at the moment. So using the values and the beliefs and the experiences that I've had, this is my best go at it. And that'll only shift and change and hopefully improve for the better. But again, you can sit on the end of a call and you can say, not having that, that's rubbish. That's also not helpful, because that's never going to move us and shift us forward. If you're not sure, say, that's really interesting. He has some different views to me. I wonder why he thinks like that. And if there's any questions that people have as a result of this kind of stuff, I'm not sure how they can feed it in, but they're more than welcome to like fire them into you, Gerard, or they can find me on like Twitter or something like that. I don't know what my Twitter account is, so I can't even share that.
No, we'll community. I'll put a little at the end of all these. We always have a reflective type form, so they can submit questions, or on the app, the platform, they can share. They have to share their reflections. So it's a great way. So we'll be able to.
Well, if anybody shares a question, I give them my word. I'll reply to it.
Okay. No, brilliant.
Because I don't think this is going to hit like 100,000 views, right? I think if we get 100 views, we're doing well. And if 100 of those people respond with a question, I will answer. I'll make that a personal challenge of my own.
No, brilliant, top man.
Thank you.
I've got to be respectful of your time, because you've given us so much, and honestly, great. I mean, there's so much there to unpack, so much there to go and try, and I think that's what a great lasting message to try is understand what's the thinking behind what you're saying. And I love that. And go and try stuff. Go and experiment. What resonates with you, and have a go. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for today. And I know this will be more of many to come, type of conversations that we have. So thank you.
No, happy to do another one. And thank you, Gerard, for inviting me. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Top man.